One thing I learned from being in a lot of rooms with very rich, very intelligent people is that the biggest decision you will make for your life and your career is who you marry. When I first heard this, I was like, surely not, because as if it wasn't enough pressure to try to find the right person for my life. Now you're telling me it affects my career? First of all, when you're rich generationally like that, your goal is to continue this legacy, and who you marry directly affects how your kids turn out. So you're very unlikely to marry someone who can negatively impact you or your children's success. There's nothing more draining than being in a relationship with the wrong person. Truth is, a lot of people pick their partners based on how they feel in the moment, while completely ignoring any long-term consequences that being with this type of personality would have. If you're attracted to someone because they're fun, what does that mean 5-10 years from now? If they don't have the traits that allow you to compatibly grow together, then seriously consider it. And don't ever settle, because just like bad things stack on top of each other, so do good things. And there is a world where your relationship becomes the fuel that drives every good thing that you do in your life. And I think that's not talked about enough.
Hello everyone, this is Emmanuel Cook. We will be reacting to a new video today, so make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe down below, and let's get into the video.
Why would you be married and not have joint finances? That I do not understand that one bit. If you trust someone enough to like move in with them, live with them, marry them, raise children with them, but you don't trust them enough with your money, that's a problem. I cannot imagine marrying someone and have them be like, we're not going to have the finances together because I don't trust you. That's literally what you're saying, whether you say it out loud or not. I can't. I know so many people who are married and they have to like Venmo each other stuff for like dinner. Like, hey, I'm paying for date night. Can you Venmo me half? I would rather be by myself the rest of my life than have to Venmo my husband for anything. Absolutely not. Or to have one of you owe money to the other. What do you owe for? Wild. Could never be me. Nope. Somebody who does this, let me know your thoughts. It has to be a trust thing, right? You just won't relinquish some kind of trust. You're afraid that they will take your money, that they'll run with it, they'll abuse it. Like, there has to be a lack of trust in your marriage to not trust the person or not to include the person in your finances. There has to be. Give me another reason, because there isn't one. Drop in the comments. This is a hill I'll die on. Makes no sense to me.
Being that finances is the number one reason why most Americans divorce, this could be helpful for someone, who's maybe considering getting married. Work as a team. You've got to work as a team, number one. Number two, you need to feel similarly about finances. Finances are more emotional than you think. They are tied to our value system. They are tied to how we operate and how we prioritize things in our life. If you and the other individual feel completely opposite about finances, one person's a spender, one person's a saver. That is a very common relationship. That is okay. The issue is if the spender and the saver can't come together and say, these are our priorities. That's the key. You have to be able to sit down, have a regular date. You and your partner have a date weekly. If it's not weekly, bi-weekly. Sitting down, laptops open, spreadsheet open. What do we owe? What is our debt? Let's put it in order. What do we need to pay for coming up? What does this month look like? What does this week look like? How much money do we have combined to pay off some of this stuff? How much do we have combined that's going towards bills? You should also have a little bit of money for yourself. That's your business. Whatever is your business is your little private funds. But ultimately, there should be some sort of agreement and a maturity to sit down and get very transparent about the bills together. And hopefully everything works out.
Being married is a financial cheat code. It's 2025. We all live in the same economy. We all know the job market sucks. It's hard to find a good paying job whether you have a degree or not. And the average income is $45,000 a year. So granted, a second income is always going to be better than one. Let's say y'all just a little bit above average and y'all both make 50. Now you're making $100,000 as a household income if both of you guys are locked in and on the same level when it comes to finances. Because if you're able to agree on finances, you last longer. And you don't have to work as hard, all that overtime just to make 60, 75K and working all weekends. Now y'all both work Monday through Friday, weekends off to enjoy each other. Go on vacation, a little 3-day trip. And then y'all both could be side hustling. She could be doing nails and hair, make a little extra $500 to $1,000 a month. He could be driving Uber or start another business, and he can make another $500 to $1,000 a month. Now we're talking a little bit higher in the six figures, $115K a year, and you're not breaking your back. That's why it's very important to find a good partner, if that's what you want. Not everybody wants that. But if you do, once you guys get on the same level financially, life is a piece of cake.
Thank you for asking this question. There's really three different ways you can go when dealing with finances as a married couple. The first one is where the couple puts all of their money into one big pot. So if both are working, say you have a working young couple, all of your money goes into one bank account. All of your expenses come out of that bank account. The downside to that one is that neither party has any discretionary funds, and there has to be really solid communication over what's coming out and what's going in. And depending on what the earnings are, if one person makes a lot more than the other, there has to be conversations over that. So it really depends on the emotional intelligence of the husband and the wife as to whether or not that method works. Another option is the couple has one shared account for shared expenses, so household expenses, and then they each have individual accounts for their discretionary funds that they can do whatever they want with. They can save it, they can, use it for whatever they want to use it for. This is the method my husband and I decided to take because it gives us a lot of autonomy over the money that we earn. We have a shared savings account. Our investments are shared. We have one account for our household expenses or our mortgage and any kind of bills that we have that are shared, and then everything else is ours. But if I want to go out and purchase something for me or gifts or some large purchase item, it's my money and he can do the same. And then of course the last option is completely separate. So you have everything is just kind of split. You have your money, your spouse has their money, and I don't know, that works for some, but there's really no merging of funds. I'm sure there's a lot of other ways to do it, but those are kind of like some of the three most common ways of divvying up finances in a marriage. Here's the thing. When I speak to young women, I am very, very frank and honest about the fact that there is a huge risk associated with relying 100% on somebody else's money. And I suppose that would apply to men too. I think it's important that everyone have some autonomy over their livelihood. And with the divorce rates being somewhere in the neighborhood of 60%, you're putting your livelihood in the hands of somebody else. And I'm just not a proponent of that. Being 60 years old, I've seen it all. Y'all, I've seen it all. I've seen women who stayed home for 20 years and it did not have a good outcome when that man decided to get up and just, start over. So, not everybody will agree with this, and I understand that, but it is important that you have some autonomy over your livelihood so that at the end of the day, if the shit hits the fan and all else fails, you are able to stand on your own 2 feet and land softly without falling to pieces. And that's my advice to young women. So hope I answered your question. I know that was a long answer. Love y'all. Bye.
The first year of our marriage, someone said this, and I thought, that is so good. That when you have an issue, it can be about money, it can be about anything, and you keep having conflict, visualize the issue being out here, and you two are together, focused on the issues. So easy, because there's a person right in front of you when you're married, and there's conflict, and they're the one that you can get so mad at, all of it. That's, of course, the easy way to do it, right? To get mad at the person. But when you say, hey, let's actually look at the issue and not the person, it helps kind of unify yourselves as we're on the same team against life, not putting the issue in between you.
Marriage advice for the girlies as someone who has been married for almost 3 years now. Before y'all get to the altar, all finances need to be laid out on the table. Down to the dollar, down to the cent. I need to know how much is in your bank account, in your savings, is something in your name? How much debt do you owe? Well, why do I need to know that? Because someone who is not upfront or willing to be upfront about their finances has the capacity to financially ruin you. It's not even about being nosy or being a gold digger. It's about protecting yourself. I just watched this TikTok of a woman calling in because her husband said he had savings to bring into the marriage. Once they were in the marriage, come to find out he has no savings and he has a bad spending habit. And if he is not paying off his debt, they're going to look at her. Why? Because they're married. You got to know what you're getting into. Open up the books.
Do you need to be earning money in the relationship in order to have any power? Let's talk about it. If you're considering getting married as a woman and you feel like the only way that you're ever going to have any power, get any respect, or be treated as an equal by this man is if you are working and going 50-50, then this man is probably not a good man to marry. If you are going to marry someone, and particularly if you're wanting to have children, you should take the view, as should he, that you're building a life together and that your contributions might look different, but that your contribution as a mother, literally bringing life into the world and raising his children and, doing the homemaker thing, should not be seen as less than bringing in the money. That should be seen as at least equal, if not even more important. And any man who doesn't think that way, do not marry him. Because any man who thinks that your power or your equality or anything like that should be contingent on you bringing in money, that is not a good man. And that is a fallacy that a lot of women have fallen into because it seems to make sense on paper. You're like, yeah, that makes sense, money, power, whatever. But let me tell you, that is how you end up as like a working single mother married, like a working married single mother. You know what I mean? Because it's those same men who only see 50-50 from a monetary perspective, and they do not value the homemaking contributions, which means they will not do them. That being said, you do still need to be able to earn your own income because you always need a plan B and C and D, and I've said it before. And that is because you never know what's going to happen, and the only thing that we can control in this life is ourselves. We cannot control what somebody else is going to do. We cannot control what is going to happen to us, but we can control what we do with our lives. And so, of course, any woman who's considering stepping away from paid employment to raise a family needs to be strategic and needs to set herself up so that she can continue to kind of keep a foot in the door. And that's going to look different for everybody depending on what sort of industry you're in. And I've done other videos on this and I'll do more in the future. You do not want big gaping holes on your resume. You always want it to look like you've been doing things, retraining, running a business, doing a bit of teaching, whatever, so that your resume has stuff that would be impressive to employers should you need to return to the workforce. There are loads of different ways to do this, but like I said, maybe a topic for another video. The point is that having that in your back pocket is super important. And that's all the power that you really need, because what you really need is the ability to support yourself, because then worst case scenario, you can just leave. And you don't need to put up with a situation where you're being disrespected, you're not being treated as an equal, you have no power, and you cannot leave because you have no other choice. It's all about having options, and it's the same thing with work. No matter what you do, you always need to be keeping an eye out for other opportunities. You need to be upskilling, you need to be networking, all the things, so that if things aren't working out over here, you always have the option to go over there. Anyway, so that's sort of what I think about that.
A quick reminder, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe down below, and let's continue the video.
If money is an issue in your marriage, come have a seat. Having success in this area of your marriage is going to come down to, do you know how your partner values money? Have you two sat down to actually realize what is the issue? If you're thinking bills are too high, we're not making enough money, blah, 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 that's not it. Dig deeper into that conversation. Why are you spending money the way that you are? Why do you look at money the way that you look at money? Why are you so afraid to open up the mail and pay those bills? Think about when you were younger. Were people talking to you about money? Did you learn money management? Or were you thrown out here to the wolves? Phase 1, we have got to stop blaming everybody else and start changing what's up here first. But come back for part 2.
The most important financial choice that you'll ever have to make is who you marry. That's the most important financial choice that you have to make. Who are you with? Did you marry a spender? A person who has no drive? Who's lazy? Who is a burden? Who's immature? Marriage is the most important choice that you'll ever have to make. Who you spend most of your time with. A lot of the people that we like and that we choose are terrible long-term partners for us.
Okay, people, just because you keep money separate in accounts that are titled differently does not make it legally separate money when you are married. If you don't have a prenup, the only assets that you have a chance at considering legally separate are those that you owned prior to marriage and kept totally separate, and potentially money that you inherited or received as a gift that you also kept totally separate. So you have to meet all those conditions for it to be protected. Or you could get a prenup that sets the rules and says anything in your individual name is separate property. That's a different story. But if you don't have a prenup, just keeping something in a separately titled account, I don't care if it's in a trust, doesn't matter. It is not necessarily legally separate.
If you make more money than your husband, you are going to argue about it. Let me explain. Right now, this is the biggest elephant in the room that you have ever had in your marriage. It not only dictates your financial conversations and decisions, it dictates all conversations. Whatever it is, every single conversation is rooted around you making more money and always ends up in y'all arguing. I get it. I had a client in your same exact shoes. And when we started working together, she had been with her partner for over a decade. They had built a very beautiful life and family together. And they both actually had businesses, but her business made at least 10 times more than his. She was having a really difficult time having empathy and understanding for why this bothered him so much and why it caused so much tension in their marriage. And so when we started working together, I walked her through my divorce-proof framework of having VVFs in your marriage: values, vision, and flexibility. Because of this framework, her and her husband not only started to have more sex, but they started joking around with each other, being more looser with each other, finally coming to a place of understanding where the other person was coming from, and finally begin focusing on things that really mattered in their life and in their marriage. And this is exactly the work that I want to do with you so that you and your partner can stop arguing about the elephant in the room. You understand? Go to link in my bio and book a sales call, even if you've been the breadwinner your entire marriage. I'm going to teach you the exact communication strategies it takes to finally have comprehension in your marriage. I love you so much. I can't wait to meet you.
If you marry for money, number one, I will guarantee that you'll settle on some level. And number two, you will never earn more than that person. The reason that marrying for money comes at a cost is because you're outsourcing your power. You're saying to the universe, I don't know how to earn money. I'm not efficient enough and I'm not abundant enough to do it myself. Which brings me to my second point. When you're not comfortable living your day-to-day life in your power, you will most likely attract someone who's misusing their power. And people who are controlling in that way never truly want to see you succeed. So you will never grow beyond what that person will allow you to. So if you want to call in your 10 out of 10 partner, you need to become the 10 out of 10 version of you. And she, my friend, is rich as fuck, living her purpose, out there in the world with her mission. And if you are in one of these relationships, I'm not saying the solution is to just jump ship or get a divorce. But what I am saying is it's an opportunity for you to start looking at your relationship with you. Why don't you believe that you're capable of making astronomical amounts of money? Why do you believe that you have to outsource your power? Start questioning your beliefs and start upgrading your identity. Because the moment you start making your own money, you will quantum leap into your power and you will never have to settle ever again.
Do you talk about money in your relationship? If you plan on getting married, you should. And here's why. Full disclaimer, if you're just casually dating, if you're dating and there has not been a talk about marriage, then no, finances don't need to be brought up. Like, that's not necessary. But if you both have the mutual understanding that you want to be married to each other at some point, that is a conversation that has to be had. I am sorry if you're uncomfortable with that. Like, you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable because it's a conversation you have to have. Like, it's just not non-negotiable. So what you learn within this assessment too is that in every relationship, there is a spender and a saver. Most relationships, the woman is the spender. Sometimes it's different. At the point of us taking this assessment, I was coming out of a very unhealthy relationship between impulsivity and yeah, I was just an impulsive spender. I'm not even trying to make it sound cute, y'all. I was just buying stuff unnecessarily. Dre knows how to hold on to a dollar at that point. I've gotten so much better at it now at this point. Remember, we took this assessment in April of 2021. So what I loved how it broke down, obviously, what's your money style? Do you have budget skills? What are your financial fears? And we both had very similar fears of just lack of security, just, you know, growing up and seeing like households where sometimes we didn't have food on the table, or sometimes we got the lights cut off because of just like financial struggles. Like a lot of Black families can relate to that. A lot of families, period, but we're talking about Black people. A lot of us can relate in that regard. So we had very similar financial fears. And then, of course, the debt talk. So I have student loan debt. Dre got a full scholarship to college for playing football. So he had no student loan debt. So that was, again, something that we both knew going into this season of marriage as well. And then the bottom half, it just has like different questions about like, what was money like when you were growing up in your home? What do you think about your financial future? What do you appreciate about your relationship with money and with your partner? Specific actions we could take. So I know for me, one way that I did cut back on spending wedding year was like doing my nails at home. I didn't go get my nails done. I wore a ton of press-ons. I probably got my nails done 3 times this whole calendar year. So that was one way that we saved money. Also just like not spending unnecessarily on things. Like obviously we cook, we meal prep at home. So that's another way we were able to cut back on expenses. So yeah, y'all, I mean, when I tell y'all preparing for marriage is not, a lot of y'all see the wedding and the dresses and all the cute stuff, but it's a lot of like background work that you have to be willing to put in if you want it to last.
The more you talk about finances, the more comfortable you're going to get talking about your finances, especially with people like your partner. Seems obvious, seems simple, right? Well, I had this experience firsthand. My husband and I hadn't tracked our finances in 6 weeks. So each of us were just spending in silos, hadn't been talking about our finances or really what we were spending our money on in a while. There were a lot of reasons why this happened. We were both traveling for work. We had something going on like literally every weekend. It just was the bottom of our priority list over and over and over again. And last night was the first time we talked about finances in that 6 weeks, where we really sat down, we pulled up our bank accounts, and we went through line by line since the middle of March and described our purchases to one another. Normally, I would have no shame around doing this process, but I had to tell my husband that I spent $2,000 on clothes in March. You wouldn't want to do that either. You wouldn't want to do that either. There were a multitude of reasons why this happened, but a big one of them is because we weren't tracking our spending. I have a really supportive husband who doesn't shame me for my spending, didn't say a thing about it. We got everything down on paper, we took a look at the numbers, and we agreed to the next date that we're gonna look at our finances. But talking through all those purchases and looking at my purchase history, it was really difficult to do. Even though like I knew I was in a safe space, I knew that he trusted me, I knew that nothing really bad was going to happen. Just the fact that we hadn't talked about it for the past 6 weeks, it was really uncomfortable. It really doesn't matter if you're like in the beginning of your financial journey or if you've been doing this for a while, because I've been tracking my finances since 2021, okay? Like this has been top of mind in my life. I've been talking about this for so long now, and I still have moments where I get uncomfortable talking about purchases that I made. But talking about finances with your partner in your marriage makes you feel icky the first time. I wouldn't let that be an indicator of whether or not you should keep doing it, because I would say it takes time and time again before you really start to get comfortable with your finances. Not only does it take time and time again getting comfortable talking about that, but it takes consistency. The more that you get in the habit of doing that, the easier it's going to be. Now I'm gonna log off because I have some China calls that I have to hop onto.
So I commented on this post on the internet and people are coming for me, okay? So I'm just gonna say what I said on the post. Now this is coming from a Christian perspective. Married folk, when you are married, this is the hierarchy. God, your spouse, then everybody else. Yes, your spouse comes before your mama and your daddy and your children. Your spouse comes before everybody after God, okay? Now, husbands, you want to buy your mama a brand new car. You tell your wife, I'm going to buy my mama an $80,000 car. And I don't care if your wife has a fleet of cars in an 8-car garage. And your wife says to you, that's a lot of money. I'm not cool with that. So then you go buy a $15,000 car. Pay cash for it. But don't say nothing to your wife. Your wife gets upset. Guess what? She should be upset. Now, y'all are thinking, well, $15,000 versus $80,000. That's not the point. How many cars your wife has is not the point. You're taking 15 grand outside joint funds. I don't care if you're millionaires. You and your spouse has to agree upon that. And if you don't agree upon it and you go do it anyway, you are out of order. Plain and simple. Can you dig it?
Here are my 2 cents about why I don't agree with people who get married and are willing to have kids together and are willing to sleep in the same bed, but not share bank accounts. If you already went to the degree to get married, to the extent that you want to unite your life with that person, right? Why would you not agree to go all in? You're already there to achieve the biggest, greatest things together. And I know what you're thinking for those that don't agree. Well, we're already doing that. We're just going to split it. You're not though. You're not, because you're not going all the way. Regardless of how you feel, you're not going all the way. And that at the end of the day is a roommate. That at the end of the day, when you split the bills, when it's your ketchup, when it's my mustard, that's not going all the way. My thing is, and will always be, you're already there. You're already there. And most of the time before y'all even get married, you already have kids. So what are you afraid of? Like, what's stopping you? Go all the way. Commit with your partner to create the best story yet. I told my husband before we got married, are we on the same page with money? Because if we are not, this is not going to work out. And if we are, let me just tell you, it's about to be the craziest ride you and I have been on. And so far, it has been. But because we talked about these things and we said it straight from the start, it's the best thing that you'll ever do in a marriage.
I have never seen more people pressure people into getting married than I have seen on this app. I don't know what it is, but in the past few months, I've just been seeing he better marry you, blah, 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 get a ring, blah, blah, blah. Like a lot of that talk. And I totally get it. But at the same time, what's not being talked about in all of this conversation is the fact that married couples with a single income are living in the poverty line, like in the United States. And a lot of these videos just make it seem like you're going to be more financially protected if you marry this man. Now, I do agree that if you're going to start a life with someone, move in with someone, have a kid with someone, you want protection. Yes, 100%. But what I'm saying is a lot of you have men who you know will not give that to you. Like, this is the thing. I have actually been engaged 3 times. None of those times, really, it would have benefited me. My last relationship, it was pretty mutual. Like, we were both like, there is no benefit. Like, I have so many great benefits as a single person, but I want to change my health insurance, all these other things. And I had an amazing lifestyle with this person, all traveling the world, living in really nice houses. Same time, I knew that if we were to ever do that, it would just add so much financial burden to the family. And most of you guys aren't even meeting people who had as much money as my ex had. And I wouldn't say he's rich by any means. I would say he's definitely middle class. So who are these girls talking to when they're saying that marriage is going to benefit them? Marriage is extremely beneficial. And what I'm saying is just make sure that it is beneficial to you. And this also might mean waiting. The person that you're with might be amazing, but all of a sudden you would have to get on his health insurance, and then you guys would be paying, like my friend who just got married, now they're paying $1,000 a month for health insurance, when before she was on Medi-Cal. I'm like, damn, maybe you could have waited like 24 months until your income was up, because nothing about your income has changed collectively. You can be engaged. You can be engaged and wait a few years until it makes sense. You could even get married and then later on legally get married if that makes more sense to you. But please, I urge you, get a life insurance policy on that man immediately. That's always what I believe and always what I tell my friends to do and what I have done. Because if you are at all intertwined in a way where you would be dependent on him, oh my God, like I am so happy that I left the relationship with that, because me and my daughter will be taken care of more than I would have if I would have got a divorce settlement. And I do get child support. So good with child support. So grateful for that. But yeah, the marriage just like would not have been beneficial. And for a lot of women at this point, and this is also why people are choosing to be single, it would not be beneficial to you.
Pastor Steve here. And I, as a retired minister, I still do marriage counseling all over the country via Zoom. And I work with a lot of couples. And one of the top things that they struggle with as couples is finances. Not how to spend the money so much, but not having enough money to make ends meet, which causes stress, anxiety, moodiness, pressure, all kinds of things that affect the marriage. And so when we look at that, they just don't know what to do because they feel like they can't take that vacation anymore. They feel like they can't buy the kids anything when needed. They feel like they can't go out to dinner and then get away as a couple once in a while. They feel like they can't do the things around the house, even put some simple things like put flowers in the garden or upgrade something or paint a room. The stress and difficulty of not having enough money is very challenging in a marriage. If you're married and you know what I'm talking about, that there's just not enough money in the day, an answer is what I found, because we were feeling the same stress and so forth too. Now, fortunately, we're married 55 years and a little more mature, so it didn't cause that problem between us, but we certainly were under that worry and anxiety about how we're going to pay the bills.
I appreciate you guys watching the video today. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.